And that's how movements get co-opted.
Yes.
Look, we've been dicking around long enough.
Mhm.
Not sure if this issue has been on the national news radar, but there was a successful 3-day strike for higher wages and better working conditions, not by teachers, but from the support staff in the LA Unified School District.
Woohoo!
Bus drivers, aides, librarians, special education assistants, etc. There was support from the teachers not to break the strike, so schools shut down for 3 days before newly elected Mayor Karen Bass came in to help with the negotiations. A large reason that the employers were compelled to strike in the first place is the astronomical cost of housing in LA County. LA Unified School District is the second largest employer in the city, next to the UC system. The raise would bring the average salary up to about $36,000 per year. To give you an idea of what market rents are in LA, the average rent for a studio is $1,700 and up to $9,000 for a 4-bedroom apartment.
Oh, wow.
The LA Unified School District has worked with nonprofits to build affordable housing and has built 185 units, and about 80% of them are Unified School District employees rather. There is a 100-person waiting list for some of these units. In a city that has such a high cost of living, struggles with housing the largest unhoused population in the U.S., and as we've discussed on this show before for numerous times, many of the longtime low-income housing units are reaching the end of their 30-year covenants to be affordable and will be switching to market rates soon. There are literally thousands of units in LA County that are in that current scenario. The reality of becoming homeless while working full-time, many of the striking workers have been in the district for over a decade, was enough to be the catalyst for mass action. Toussaint, should we see this as a win? Will this raise really mean that much in the long run when even a 30% raise that'll be reached by many of the workers won't even help a lot of the people because so many currently live in affordable or subsidized housing?
It's a really tough call. It's almost like you're standing in quicksand and someone hands you a parasol. Is this helping? I don't know.
I declare.
I declare it's still a problem.
It's dangerous over there. Who told you to walk in the quicksand? I find this an interesting discussion because I was with a soon-to-be guest on the show. I got to speak in her class, Catherine Liu. And she actually spoke a little bit to this about how in a lot of these left circles, activist circles, there's a lot of help for the quote-unquote most vulnerable. And while that population is large, it's still relatively small when we talk about the population of people that, for example, work for the LA County School District. They can't afford housing.
Right.
And this isn't the first strike where it's not just wages, it's affordable housing that these teachers are asking for because many of them can't afford to live
right
where they teach. Excuse me. And that's causing longer commutes, mega commutes. And in one of the articles I was reading this morning, one gentleman was a special education assistant, and he had moved to San Diego County because that was the outskirts of San Diego County because that was the only place he could afford. And it's like 90 minutes one way.
See.
So
creating super commuters is not
super commuters are a thing. I mean, again, if you guys want to read more about it, I know if you want to read an abridged version, Randy Shaw talks about it in his book Generation Priced Out. Because in the Bay Area, I can't speak for other people's communities. I really can't even speak for LA. That was kind of the first time I heard about a super commuter in LA. But I know people commute from Bakersfield, which is really far from LA County. I mean, you got to go over the Grapevine.
No.
You got to pass. You have to go over a mountain pass that closes because we actually get snow on it. To if you live there, I'm sure there's another way, but you know, we talk about trying to help this super vulnerable population, and that is complicated. Again, Randy Shaw came in and talked about that, like these initiatives that were passed, billion-dollar initiatives to build housing, and that was only designed to help a quarter of the homeless population. What happens to this almost forgotten population of working poor?
Right.
Many of them are working multiple jobs. And I don't really see too many people talking about it because it almost feels like there's a bit of a bootstrappingness to it. Like, well, hey, they have a roof temporarily, not my problem.
I don't know. I feel like people don't even know they exist. The idea that you could live in a shelter and still be working.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that you could sleep on the subway and still be working. That's a really tough one for people to swallow. Entirely antithetical to the American dream. And I think it's just kind of ignored, or people don't get that happens. It's tough out there.
So you don't see any solutions in sight.
That's not what I said that to say. It's difficult because it's one thing to ask for higher wages, it's another thing to ask for housing. You Who are you asking? They seem to be asking the people that they're asking for wages for housing as well. Now that's a whole other business. How are they going to pull that off? I mean, really, it's not up to us to figure out how they're going to pull it off. It's up to them. But seems a lot less likely. You've got these two very different requests.
What I find kind of interesting about this moment that we're in is, as we're heating up for another big presidential election that I've been talking about on this show ad nauseum and on other shows, I don't think it's going to be filled with large personalities in the way that we've been seeing for the last few cycles. And there seems to be quick capitulations. Like, I haven't seen too many people talk about it too much, but they just killed the right to work law in Michigan. Historically, a union town.
Right.
Excuse me. The state in general historically has been union, as that was the number one sector next to California for,
Car manufacturing.
automotive build out.
Right.
Was at one point in time, Detroit was at one point in time the richest city. I don't know about the world. I know definitely in the country. And now, of course, it's a shell of itself.
Right.
As there's a battle against a lot of these gig jobs. Proposition 22, I think, is still being held up in the courts right now, which was a huge rollback on worker rights. I saw Gavin Newsom is trying to turn, or not trying, but is going to turn San Quentin Prison into a rehabilitation facility, very reminiscent of the Nordic model.
So the state is now paying for yoga mats, is what you're saying.
The state is going to pay for yoga mats and meditation.
All right.
But what does a rehabilitation center look like without the large safety net that one gets when you do live in these Nordic countries? And not that you just get, that you're accustomed to. You're accustomed to a certain sort of brutality when you live in the U.S. And in reading these multiple articles about these labor struggles, and reading about the living conditions, we talked about it a few weeks ago on one of our news shows about the living conditions in the Skid Row Housing Trust, where like all these homes they had or or properties they have for the unhoused are falling apart. And I constantly talk to friends of mine that still work in that field, and it's the same discussion we had when I was working there. You're getting the most difficult people. And she was telling me, a friend was telling me a story about a client she got that is blind, but he recently lost his sight.
Mm.
So he's still figuring out how to get around. Now, this person needs an aid worker, and there's a service that can provide an aid worker, but he hasn't gotten one yet. That like helps you. They come clean your room. They'll teach you how to walk, because you have to learn how to walk within your place. So the guy doesn't know how to find his bathroom, so he just pees all over the place.
Oh.
But if you can find a styrofoam container, because they bring you food, you get food in these facilities, and they just pee in that.
I'll go there.
And he's got other mental deficiencies as well.
I suspect
he can't live alone.
Working on finding the bathroom, and then the time runs out. The clock runs out.
She says the dude was just like, look, man, I can't find it. I get disoriented. I can't find it. She says he has good days and bad days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she had to go in and clean up his room. It's not like you have a staff to do that.
Yeah.
And you got to know how to clean up waste.
True.
And that man is going to get put in housing, and probably won't keep it that long. And if he does keep it, it'll probably be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the things that you need to try to look at this problem properly. I don't think people want to look at it to scale and look at all the things you have to deal with. I always hear this, and we talk about it all the time, because I just want to stop hearing it, right? Just, there's more houses than people. It's like, yeah, where are they located?
Right. Montana.
And does anyone know how eminent domain works? When you don't see a federal rollout, why do you think your municipality, which is filled with these people that that aren't paying, certain taxes, has the money to pay for all this? That level of support staff. And even when they do have money set aside for the support staff, take LA County into consideration again, they can't even hire people because no one wants to work in that environment. So I find it fascinating that everybody has the solution, but don't even really understand the problem per se.
Yeah.
And that's just one section, right? We're just talking about like the unhoused. We're not even talking about these, check to check people that, are just literally getting priced out and have to do, mega commutes and stuff like that. I saw someone talking about why they felt Americans don't strike like the French. There's definitely, I'm writing about it. It's a lot to get into. I mean, France, first of all, is like this big. You can have a centralized protest more so than you can have, in the US. But bigger than that, people don't trust in institutions here because we don't have a very good social safety net.
Right.
So when the age of Social Security went up a few years ago, nobody burnt down any buildings. There wasn't much of a fuss. is it culture? I'm asking the question now. Is it culture? Or is it the fact that we truly don't trust in institutions, and we know sometimes due to the nature of the lives in which we live, like, take me for example, I'm not paying into Social Security.
Right.
How much am I really going to get when it's time for me to retire?
Oh my God, now I'm so worried about you. I want you to have the good cat food.
Hey,
Yeah,
eat the good cat food.
I want you to have
It's
fancy
in the
feast.
refrigerated section, not that cat food in the can.
That's right.
You know, I was watching, I was doing a video essay for something, and a news story popped up that was a current news story on like CBS News, and it was about elderly people that were taking in younger millennial tenants in their homes, and most of these people were like widows and widowers, and they just couldn't afford their mortgages. A lot of them had like refied during the mortgage boom. Bottom fell out of their property, but they still have it. They were able to keep it. And so they were taking in roommates, and there was like this loving story of these older boomers that are, you know, bonding with these young millennials and how wonderful it is. And I was watching that, and it was just so sad.
Those feel-good stories are often very sad.
Depressing as all hell.
Yeah. I mean, not that we have to be so individualistic and all that everyone needs their own house and old people should be able to be alone. But
Die alone.
Die alone. We'll find your body in a couple of years. But they're forced to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to develop a relationship with some of these older people because they have so many needs. And as a millennial, you have so many needs too. It's in both of your best interests to come together. Yeah.
Yeah, no, those are like super disturbing tales. I see Steve says Jason better get to the OnlyFans before it's too late. Steve, it's far too late.
No.
It's far too late.
You could be in the dad bod small rod section.
Wow.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's not a dad bod. It's a father figure.
That's how I come out, with just a thimble on the head.
A thimble and a parasol.